this last week. You know, they've all got to get real and just sign my interfaith peace treaty and stop attacking each other's religion. It gives the whole thing a bad name. And Indra's not happy with all that stuff. He'll send some thunderbolts to get you if you carry on. And the other god I've been doing is Hercules. As if Indra isn't powerful enough. Okay, so the Tower of the Gods, it's all the strong male gods of the planet. It's an invocation of the brotherhood, if you want. And Hercules is pretty cool too. You know, we all love Hercules from the cartoons we grew up with and the stories we were read to by our mothers and so on. But actually he is quite a sophisticated and cultured and interesting deity who has his own lineage. He was known by the Phoenicians of Tyre as Melkart. Monaco is named after him, the little principality in the south of France here, because there was a great temple to Hercules. And he was known as far as Britannia. And Robert Graves, in his wonderful White Goddess, has a whole chapter about Hercules in the Celtic disguise. Because and Lucian also talks about this, in the Celtic world of Gaul, where I'm speaking from, Hercules was regarded as the most eloquent. Golden chains came out of his mouth, which could effect reality in such a way that only Hercules could. You know, as he spoke, so it became. And that's why he was known as the master of the Ogham, or Ogma Sunface, he was called in the Irish tradition. He was the god that taught mankind letters and writing. In the Druid world, we call that the Oghams. They're like the runes. And each Ogham was a tree, and each is a sacred sound. Do is the letter D. And it stands for that which is strong and enduring. And it's in words like Dharma and endurance. And Daffern, by the way. Yeah, we all like a good D, and it's also the river D, and it means black, because black is sacred, it's the colour of the pupil of the eye. So, oh yeah, so what's not to like about Hercules? And I do agree that our life is so complex and so difficult, and we've got pandemic, and we've got forest fires, and we've got global warming, that actually only Hercules can save us. So I've been researching the 12 labours of Hercules and writing them all up for my book and going into his deep history in the Phoenician world. Herodotus, who first got me interested in ancient history, he said Hercules was actually Egyptian, and he's got some fascinating theories about that. Others say no, he was Indian. There's a Megasthenes, who went as an ambassador to Pataliputra, BC, wrote a book called Indica, which has been lost tragically, in which he said no, Hercules was Indian. I think Hercules is universal, and that's something that Robert Graves said in his wonderful chapter devoted to Hercules in the White Goddess. It's called Hercules on the Lotus, chapter 8. And he goes into great detail. Dear old Graves was a good scholar. And although some people just can't make sense of him, I mean, I think they're just lazy. If you really read him, he does know what he's talking about. And he agrees there were many, many different types of Hercules. It was a kind of, it was a title. Like, I'm Peace Druid of Europe, you know, but like when I'm dead and gone, somebody else hopefully will come and claim the title, a Peace Druid of Britain. It's not mine, it's just a thing, right? And so who's the Hercules of the day? You know, we need them, please. We need them to come and do the 12 labours that now we're facing, like stopping global warming, ending war, ending nuclear war, ending biological war and pandemics, ending world poverty, ending, you know, gender abuse and violence, and ending social media corruption and lies and disinformation, forcing politicians to tell the truth. You know, that's about 8. you can think of the other four. So, yeah, so that's what we need. I'm going to read a little poem about Hercules in the Graves chapter. Gosh, it's hard to choose. One that's very interesting is about the alphabet, because Graves, as I say, reckons that Hercules, in the form of Ogma, invented the alphabet, and therefore he kind of encoded this invention in a little poem, which he translates as follows. I, the roebuck fawn, on the lotus ferried, lurched to and fro, newborn. I, the guardian of boundaries, cleave wood. I, the suffering one, am consumed by fire, vanish. I distribute, I rejoice. I, the famous one, establish. I flow away. So, read the chapter yourself, Hercules in the Lotus, and it raises lots of very interesting questions about the links between the Celtic world, their Hercules, and the Greek world, and their Hercules, and the Phoenician. And one thing that is often not taught, I went into this in huge detail in my Encyclopedia of Druid Studies I published last year, is that Hercules was also the ancestor of the Celtic peoples. He had a son called Celtes, who gave his name to all the Celtic tribes. And all the Druids of Gaul, Britain, and all the rest would have acknowledged Hercules as their ancestor. Also, Holinshead, who wrote the great historical chronicle of Britain, which Shakespeare drew on for his plays, plots, a lot of them. Holinshead talks about Hercules as being the king of Britain at one point in the ancient times. And in fact, Hercules conquered Albion. It's a bit of a throwaway line. And his son then in turn became king of Britain. So that's interesting, And I wonder if Blake knew about. I wonder what role Hercules plays in Blake. I haven't had a chance to research that. Hercules studies is like that's a whole year's work you could go down a rabbit hole on. But I can't do that. I'm spending, I've got limited time to do these cards. And I've done the Hercules card now. I'm still in the middle of it, to be honest. Right, so I want to also just come to the end and say that the other thing I've done this week since we last met is I've been active in the Delphic Games committee, and we have meetings, and our colleagues in Germany and elsewhere, America, where we're planning the Delphic Games, which are revived as the Olympic Games were, and we're trying to steer that into the next, events. And I think this is very important. You see, Delphi was ancient even in the time of Hercules. We know some of the oracles that were given which impact on Hercules' life story. And Hercules was around, if he existed as like a one person, probably there's a real hero there. It would have been in the Mycenaean times, like 1400 BC or something. He was around very early on, perhaps even earlier, 1700. So Delphi was that old as well. So to bring back the Delphic Games is like a huge little project that, some colleagues and I are working with. I'm the educational coordinator for the Delphic Games, and I want schools all over the planet, universities, to remember their Delphi. Know thyself. If a school has a component of know thyself in it, by teachers' philosophy and joined up thinking, then it gets the Delphic Award as a school. If it doesn't, sorry, you don't qualify. It's just teaching kids how to become brain-dead robots to gain lots of money and just invent weapons of mass destruction. Then no, Delphic Award's not coming your way. It's got to have peace education, a mediation scheme in place. It's got to teach know thyself as the core of the curriculum. It's got to be porous boundaries between different disciplines, so it doesn't see all these subjects as separate things. It sees them as interconnected learning fields, as Christopher Bache puts it. Then it gets the Delphic Award. So any heads of schools want to contact me about this, I'm happy to talk. Okay, and I'm going to finish with a poem, which is appropriate because poetry is one of the things that always the Delphic Games included. Pindar wrote several of his great odes, attending the Pythian Games or Delphic Games. And so I'm going to finish this short talk with a poem. Yes. This is called Words from the Underground. Poem 983 of my oeuvre. I've written just over 1,000 so far and counting. I kind of write my poetry when I'm alone, quiet and at peace, and in the interstices between my more sort of prose type stuff. Poetry's, in a sense, the real me. Well, no, they both are. Words from the Underground. This was written in the last 4 years. Poetic responses to fracturation, God's endlessness. The poetic undertow, resistance to fracturation, recalling wholeness, returning to universality, restoring completeness, truthing, on journeying towards paradisical intercompleteness, eggs, beauty, sheen, simmering, symmetry, love's wholeness, soul shape, whole soul, unity within, stored, for survival's temporal bridging, influenced by allness, researching wholeness, existence, re-existence. Love is. Europa is. Greece is. Italy are. Conjugating verbs as light. Scotland is. Ireland's are. England, Cornwall, Wales, France are, as are Spain's. Israel becomes. Iraq undone. Lebanon reborn. Palestine becoming. India ever shall be. China pausing. The Americas surprising. Africa astounding. All wholeness calling. Love's unity downloading into poetry's channelings. Love's learnings. Wisdom's trees fruit. Poetic fever. Taliesin's dreamings. Death's impossibility to code. Looks on Abraham's alphabet onward, spinning paradise unchecked, rechecked. Monkeys' mutterings. Water's murmurings. Life's learnings. Love's onwards learnings. Gratitude grows attitude. Words interlock meanings. Pains broken become simmerings. Death's Greek desymmetrings, God, goddess, uncouplings, fracturings, dissipatings, loves, still leaping across, climbing up creepered balconies, infinite gazings, jolly aspirings, regatherings, intergroupings, interconspiring,